last week's tournament. But here we go. This is going to be game 3 of a best-of-5 finals. Also, interesting, good point something to point out. Tails is streaming this too. So if you want to see a first-person view of him, definitely open that up in a different browser. Of course, keep this open. Of course. Perhaps play our commentary in the background, or you watch his first-person view. Maybe that might you know, offer an interesting perspective. But in any case, it's going to be game 3 between spawning in the top right-hand location, the pink PrOtoss player CRANK representing Team Slayers. He's currently tied 1-1 with our orange PrOtoss player in the bottom left-hand location, Tails from Team MVP. Map is Daybreak.
Yeah, and we saw pretty interesting PvPs in this tournament thus far. We've seen a lot of, well, actually not a lot, we've seen a cannon rush. We've seen a lot of expansions into Colossus, different timings. Blink was something that CRANK also utilized in the previous PvP games, so that's going to be something to look out for. CRANK seems to favor Blink, man, in PvP. You know, this sort of shows some kind of confidence in his microcontrol with the Blink Stalker, so I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe goes for a similar opening. But yeah, it's tied 1-1, game number 3 right here, and Tails and CRANK, two phenomenal players in their respective races. PvP, of course, one of those matchups where it's hard to know what your opponent's doing, man, but if you get the right scouting information, you can be victorious.
Yeah, and it was an interesting build last game from CRANK. Went for the pretty fast robo, the pretty fast expansion, and just didn't have enough to deal with the amount of units that appeared at his front door. That's one of those things. You know, you have a mentality as a Protoss. All right, if I have sentries, I'm going to be safe in the early game. Not necessarily. If your opponent goes for that DT play, turns that thing into an Archon, guess what? Your ramp is broken. You have to have a really, really good micro to hold that off. It's very difficult. And even then, if your opponent does enough damage, like, they're going to be ahead. So you got to be cautious of everything that's going on. And let's talk about these two builds really quick. Both players going for the 13 gates. Really focusing on their pro production. Not too surprising at all, considering it is such a long rush distance. But they're saving up a little bit. So might try to chrono boost a Stalker once it comes out, or chrono boost a couple times. And we see a gas being taken from CRANK a little bit faster than Tails. I think we saw this last game too. Maybe. And look at this.
Yeah.
Do you think Tails is going to try to hide this probe forever in his opponent's base?
Well, I don't think CRANK scouted it at all, so you know, it's definitely going to stay there for as long as possible. If it doesn't get scouted, it possibly might turn into a pylon. Yeah. But yeah, that is a good amount of chrono here
Both
for
of them
Tails.
do,
Looks
actually.
like he's going to chrono boost the Stalker. Excuse me, going to chrono boost out the first Stalker. Zelda's already out for Tails. Also going to chrono boost out the Warp Gate technology. Both players pretty much utilizing the same chrono boost towards the same things. The thing is, more chrono boost is being spent here on the Warp Gate for CRANK. And who has the advantage right now? It looks like Tails has a very small advantage. Actually, no. CRANK has a little bit of an advantage. And a Stargate being thrown down for CRANK. And there is okay, no. I almost saw a robo, excuse me. But no robo yet on the way for Tails. That is good. Phoenix are fantastic against robo play. It looks like both players are going to try to scout around right now. They do not want to miss any kind of proxy pylons. But in the main of CRANK, the probe is still there. And this actually might be a little bit of trouble here for CRANK, because what is Tails going to do? He's going to throw down 2 additional gateways. Might even make a pylon and go for a little bit of offense here into the main base of CRANK.
Tails wins this game, I'm going to feel so bad for CRANK. I'm going to feel so bad, at least with the early gateway stuff, because he sent a Zealot over to the right side and attack moved, and he walked right by the probe. But he didn't see it, obviously. So, is Tails going to put down a pylon? Oh, he is. Oh my god. And CRANK, in his mind, he thinks he scouted this. I saw him cue something over there, though. I saw him point with his mouse. Oh no. Okay, well, we'll see what happens here. Tails is like, he's putting a Twilight Council behind this. It's not like this is a 4-gate. If you put down 4 gates, this might be a win. But here we go. Pylon finishes. And Tails is about to warp in a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, man, and just look at what CRANK has. He only has 2 Zealots and 2 Sentries. The Phoenix is all the way across the map. It's not like they would have done so much in this engagement. But Force is going to go off, and CRANK now is going to be like, where did these units come from?
He scouted it, man.
Absolutely,
He saw the probe.
And yeah, he saw it, but at the same time, man, it looks like Tails is going to warp in additional units, moving up the ramp with the Stalkers and the Zealots. Phoenix is going to try to go back home, but might be a little bit too late here for Tails to do anything. Supply advantage in the favor of CRANK. More Zealots going to be warped in here for Tails. Going to lift up the Stalkers. What do you think about lifting up the Stalkers instead of the Zealots? I would say lift up the Zealots, but at the same time, it just seems like it's not going to be enough Well, maybe actually, might be enough.
Oh, no.
A little bit of lag.
That's not a good
But,
time to lag.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate for Tails, but Crank might actually clean this up, but there are more reinforcements here being warped in for Tails. Blink is also on the way, about halfway completed. I don't know, man. Crank is holding, but how long can you hold on for?
Yeah, his income is dropping too. A lot of probes have lost their lives, but again, Tails going Blink behind this. Again, if this was a 4-gate, I feel like he would have won the game already. But I guess, you know, expecting his probe to be scouted and just like, all right, just maybe if something happens, something happens. So just right now, going to start focusing down some probes. Going to try to keep these stalkers away from the Phoenix and Sentries. And actually, I'm not sure if those are good. The best force fields in the world or the worst? Because the stalkers can't move, but then zealots can't get at them. There's no zealots.
That's true. The sentries take forever to kill stalkers, but there's actually a few sentries here for Crank. 5 sentries. He's going to be able to clean that rather quickly, and Tails is still being very aggressive with his Blink is finally finished, so he will be able to blink away some stalkers. There we go. We're going to see a little bit of Blink usage here from
I feel
Tails,
so bad.
and GG gets called from Crank, and that is such a terrible feeling when you know you lost because there's a pylon in your main base.
He's got it too, man.
Yeah.
He saw the probe. He saw the probe. I was on his vision. He saw the probe with the zealot. He walked right next to it. The zealot was on attack move.
Yeah.
In his mind, he's like, all right, I'm going to attack move my zealot over here. If there's a probe over there, it'll kill it. The zealot just like, hey, man, I'm not going to kill the probe. I'm not doing it. I'm not telling you about it. I'm not telling my commanding officer that there's a probe in the enemy base. I'm not going to do that. And, oh, Tails able to get the pylon down. I feel so bad for Crank. Oh, man.
It happens,
It's the
man.
worst
PvP
feeling in the
is-
world, dude.
It's an unforgiving
It's
matchup.
happened to
Things like
you?
that happen.
It's happened to
yeah,
you.
Of course.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And now, Tails is one away from taking the second